Okay, so now we're in the next phase here in the process. You just did your selection process where you identified how many steps does each potential applicant need to go through before there's an ultimate decision saying, yes, you're going to hire them. And then, if there are multiple steps, what are the criteria that are going to need to be met, to advance on to the next step. So you have that all figured out. So now you know who you're going to hire. Now we're hiring them. And so when you first hire them, we have orientation and we have training. Orientation tends to be more like just getting them familiar with the company. That could be, if you have a bigger company, maybe filling out onboarding paperwork. You're definitely going to need the paperwork that you need to fill out for I-9, verifying social security number and eligibility to work in the United States, ID, photographing, all that kind of stuff. That will be in the orientation and onboarding process. But if you offer benefits and like maybe health insurance and those kinds of things, that would be the time that you would be doing your orientation, maybe a tour of the space if they haven't already, those types of things, acclimating them to the company itself. And then we have the training. It may be that a line cook or a server was hired because he or she has the appropriate experience, but there's still going to be an element of training that needs to be done on your systems and how things work in your restaurant. Training is huge. Training is a really big thing. Training can help you mitigate potential lawsuits for negligent hiring or negligent retention or negligent training and monitoring your employees, because you do have a duty to your guests. So you have a legal duty to provide a safe environment for your guests, and you have that same obligation to the rest of your employees. So making sure that everybody is properly trained is paramount. There was recently, I think in the last year or two, there was an incident where a server bumped into another server and hot water was spilled on a young child. And of course, the patrons, the parents, wanted to sue the restaurant because their child had scalding hot liquid dumped on, I can't remember if it was a little boy or a little girl. But anyway, so this child had hot liquid dumped on it. And of course, the parents are going to want to sue the restaurant. And one of the causes of action that was brought was for negligent hiring, or not hiring, but negligent training, because the argument is that, there, if the employees would have been trained to come around a corner a certain way based on the layout of that restaurant, that situation would have been avoided if there was something in the training of the employees to make sure that they don't bump into each other on the floor. So training is really, really critical here. It can keep you out of hot water with liability to your guests, and then also help keep you out of hot water with liability exposure to other employees too. So making sure everybody's trained. And we're not just talking negligence, but like other legal liability, and making sure that the training is done properly, excuse me. That's on the legal side. Then on the practical side, you want to make sure that things are done properly, and so that your business does well and things are being done consistently. So you need to make sure that that training is done. The training can also serve as a way to fix something in your HR process. So as you've seen, we're now a few steps down the road here in the HR process. You first identified what jobs you need, identified the duties that were going to be needed to be performed in each of those jobs, expounded on that, and then in your job description started figuring out what kind of qualifications were truly needed for that job to perform those job duties. Then you go through the process of how you're hiring people. What's your selection process look like? And now we're in the onboarding and training. Let's say fast forward to the end of the semester when you are taking the look back and you've finished all of these different processes along the way, all your different assignments. and you're at that look back point where you are evaluating employees, which I think is actually going to be your next assignment. So you're in the process now, let's say, of evaluating employees, and you're like, oh my goodness, we consistently have a problem with certain skill sets with our line cooks, or we're always running into consistency issues with our prep cooks, or whatnot. When you're in that evaluation stage and you're trying to figure out what's going right or wrong in your business, you're going to look back to all these earlier steps. And one of the ones that you're going to look at is your training. Why do we have consistency issues with our sauces? Like, they never come out the same. There's always something wrong. Or on, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, people love how food's coming out, but then the other days there just seems to be something missing. What's going on? Well, we'll look back and say, well, is it an individual issue? Is it one employee that's responsible for those inconsistencies? Or is it like all the employees are responsible for the inconsistencies? So then we need to look to the training and be like, well, how are we training our employees? Are we training them to do this properly? Do we need to go through and add training? Maybe we haven't been training at all. And we decide, you know what? Maybe we actually need to train them on how to make this specific sauce, instead of just saying, hey, here's the recipe, go for it. So you'll look back and you say, okay, so we have these problems in the business, and it's been identified that it's an employee related issue. Where in the process is it? Is it in training or lack thereof? Or is it in onboarding, because we never actually properly orientated everybody and they don't even know where things are? Or does it go further back than that? And is it that we're just not hiring the right people? Do we need to modify our selection process? Do we need to maybe advertise somewhere other than Craigslist? Should we try maybe one of the more expensive online platforms to post our job postings? I don't know. Or is it that maybe we have too many job duties for one position and not another one? Do we maybe need to take away some of the duties from the line cooks and put those on the prep cooks or on the dishwasher to help out, because we're like running out of time over here, and so we're inconsistent on this side? So maybe we need to take a little bit off the plate of the line cook. Let's say you have line cooks peeling shrimp, for instance, in their job duties. That's one of the things they have to do to prep their station, but they keep running out of time and they get behind, and then food isn't coming out consistently. So now maybe we'll have the dishwashers peel the shrimp and free up a little extra time so the line cooks can free up, have more time to properly sub their station. I don't know. There's all kinds of mitigating or varying things that can go wrong or go right. So this is why we do this, is we walk through all these different processes so we can go back and figure out what needs to be changed. Where we are currently is we're in the training and onboarding land. So this is where you put together your training system, and this could be an area where you might have to change later. But for now, create what you think would be a good training program and orientation program for your new hires, because that's where we are in this process. All right. And as always, we'll have office hours further discussing this if you have any further questions.